What's happening, everybody? Welcome to week 13 and another episode of Facemask Fantasy. Wasn't a ton of activity last night on the Saturday stream, so not 100% sure how many folks might need help with just a couple hours to go before the slate. However, this is a crucial week for a lot of people as far as determining playoff positioning. Some folks probably are already clinched up. You got a good record. You're cruising. You're feeling good. Lots of points scored. You're in good shape. Today doesn't apply to you as much. Unfortunately, there are other folks who are probably out of it. If you're, 3-9, maybe even 4-8. 4-8, you're probably still mathematically alive, but anything worse, you're probably out of it. You're pouring a tall boy and getting ready for next year. Everybody else, the vast majority of folks, have yet to clinch playoff spots. They either have an opportunity to do so today, or they have, maybe even more importantly, an opportunity to stay alive today. Whether you are in pole position for a playoff spot or on the outside looking in, but just needing a win to stay in the race, this is a crucial week. Important decisions to be made. So we can talk shop over the next however long y'all need up into the slate to sort all that stuff out. I got an annoying situation myself. I got to figure out, I have Dallas Goedert on IR in sleeper. And so I'm currently blocked from making any actual lineup moves. So I'm like between and it's a 10-team league. So there's like good players littered throughout my bench. It's like, I don't want to drop any of these guys, but I have to. So I will be taking the time as well to figure out what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of hours. So there's little things like that, little details like that you might have to sort through today just to get your lineup squared away. But that's my problem, not y'all's. Just going around the horn, looking at the most recent updates. As it pertains to players' availability today. Noah Brown is expected to play for Houston, but Dalton Schultz is out. I would expect that Nico Collins and Tank Dell continue to get opportunities funneled to them. They are both wide receiver 2s with decent upside. Treylon Burks will play. He's on the bench, if not outright on waivers. Chris Olave, this is the big one. He is expected to play. It sounds like he's passing concussion protocol at a faster rate than previously expected. If he's in, depending on who your other options are, probably going to want to find a way to fire him up, assuming that there are no setbacks. This is another surprise. Marquise Brown is expected to play after not practicing all week, so we'll see how effective he is able to be today. Keenan Allen is expected to play. We talked about this last night. He was downplaying the severity of his injury. Logged a limited practice on Friday after missing practice on Wednesday and Thursday, so it sounds like he's fine and good to go. It looks like the weather is shite in New England, as it usually is this time of year. Last I checked, it was around 40, 45 degrees and raining. So gross, but not enough to deter you from firing somebody up like Keenan Allen. Chris Godwin is likely to play today. He's dealing with a neck injury. It sounds like he's feeling okay, but the team wants to test him out in pregame warmups. So we may not get a designation on Chris Godwin at 11:30. That's typically 11:30 East. That's typically when teams start rolling in their inactive lists. Ezekiel Elliott's expected to play today. You're not starting him anywhere. Jonathan Taylor, this is significant. The original expectation for him was a 2-week absence. Now, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, we're looking at a 3 to 5 week absence. So hopefully you grabbed Zach Moss. If you were able to get Moss, he is an RB1 through the fantasy playoffs. volume-based RB1 through the playoffs, and it starts today. Aaron Rodgers, unlikely to return this season. We all knew that. His return to practice to me was, I don't know, nothing more than a morale boost for the Jets, maybe. Even though it's still a lost season, they're 4-8, going nowhere. See if they get a win today against Atlanta. I'm not exactly banking on it. But regardless, if anybody was holding out hope that Aaron Rodgers was returning this season, that's not going to happen. I think that's about it as far as what we have received this morning, as far as the most up-to-date injury reports. So we'll continue to get more updates rolling in the next half hour or so, probably about the next 23, 25 minutes or so. We'll get full inactive lists starting to roll in for the 1 o'clock slate. But the big one being Chris Olave's availability. I was operating this week assuming he would not play just because of the turnaround time for folks who suffer a concussion, players who suffer a concussion. Typically, they need to sit a week. But apparently Olave is feeling well enough to go. The Saints need him. They are in the thick of an NFC South division race, which is probably ultimately meaningless. None of those teams pose any threat in the race for the NFC pennant, but winning the division is winning the division. They need Chris Olave. The Saints do to make that happen. He's expected to go today. So if you have Chris Olave, we probably want to find a way to get him into your lineup if you had previously taken him out of your lineup. So, with that said, we can now go ahead and move forward with questions from the chat. As always, I will take member questions first. If anybody's feeling generous enough to offer a super, you don't have to, but those would be a line jumper as well. And then I will get to everybody else. So I just ask for a little bit of patience in the event that more questions start rolling in. And we'll go from there. So I can start with Crumbly Heads. What's going on, man? Yeah, Chris Olave. Gonna play. Did not expect that. Trying to think who would I, take out to get him in. Certainly Jerome Ford, I would put him in over. I would put Olave in over Jerome Ford at the very least. Over Nico, probably. Over Ridley, probably. Over Allen, no. Yeah. Do you leave Ford in over Connor? Maybe you leave Ford in over Connor. I think that's what I would do. Crumbly Heads. I think you shared your lineup in Discord. That's where I'm pulling this from. I would take James Conner out of your lineup. I would put Ford in the RB2 spot, and I would put Olave in the flex. Well, I would put Ridley in the flex because he's playing on Monday night. That's where I would go. Yeah. Get Olave in there. I would move Ford to your RB2 spot over Connor. I would bench Connor. It's not a good matchup today against Pittsburgh, and he hasn't been very good in his return anyway. With Marquise Brown in the lineup, Trey McBride is in the lineup. Perhaps it's less likely that they funnel a significant amount of work to James Conner in the form of extra catches, dump offs, all that good stuff. I would take Connor out. I would move Ford to the RB2 spot. I would move Olave in, and I would slide Ridley to your flex since he's playing on Monday night. That's what I would do. That is what I would do. Um, yeah, obviously another factor here going on is there are a significant number of teams on bye this week. Unfortunately, the NFL doesn't care about fantasy football. If they did, then all of the bye weeks would have been wrapped up at least by last week. Um, these late week 13 and week 14 buys don't do anybody a favor. At least next week, there's only a couple of teams on bye. I think it's Arizona and Washington, and outside of a couple of players, not a significant loss for your fantasy lineup. But yeah, with the Bills, the Ravens, the Raiders, I keep forgetting who else is on bye this week. The Vikings, a lot of good options unavailable for folks today. So we got to navigate that. But guess what? That's not going anywhere next year. That's not going anywhere the year after that. They don't care about these details. For your quarterbacks, Kyler gets a boost because Marquise Brown is in and Trey McBride is in. But it's a bad matchup on the road against Pittsburgh. I think ultimately I would go with your second two options out of those three. I think I would go Russ and I would go Herbert. Herbert has Keenan Allen, so I feel stronger about him, even though it's not a great matchup. I don't love the spot that the Chargers are in today. I know that they are theoretically, they're at the advantage playing the New England Patriots, who are bad. They are playing out the string. They are looking forward to whether they have the first pick, the second pick, or the third pick this year in the 2024 draft. The Patriots are playing for absolutely nothing for the rest of 2023. So they are, in theory, a favorable matchup from here on out. My problem is the Chargers stink too. And they're on the road, cold weather. They had to leave sunny Southern California to go to New England, where it's 40 degrees and raining in a season where they're 4-7. They're not that good. And they got to play a bottom feeder in New England. They should win this game, but I don't know if they will. Herbert should be fine. But I will say that I do very much dislike this spot for him. But with Keenan Allen in, he still has Austin Eckler. That is enough for me to say fire up Herbert and hope for the best. And then I would play Russ. The Broncos are playing good football right now. And on the road against Houston, they're gonna need to play aggressively regardless of game script, whether they have a lead or whether they are trailing. You know what teams do when they are trailing in games. They're going to throw the football. But on the road, given in this situation, in these circumstances, even if they have a lead, I would expect the Broncos to stay aggressive and continue to throw the ball. Russ is, I think, the top streamer this week at the position. It would have been potentially Jordan Love, but it's a tougher matchup by the numbers, and he doesn't have Aaron Jones. And when Aaron Jones is out for the Packers, that offense struggles collectively as a whole. So I would say Russ, and I would bench Kyler. Oh, my bad. You have Crumlids. You've got Juwan Johnson in there. No, I would keep. Okay, yeah, take Juwan Johnson out. I mean, he's interesting. He's viable. With Rashid Shaheed being out, but with Chris Olave in, he's a little more dicey. I would take Juwan Johnson out, and then you can just put Olave. You can just put Olave in one of your receiver spots and put Ridley in that flex spot. Where you previously had Juwan Johnson. So, yeah, you can fire up Connor. You're not expecting more than like a floor game. You're hoping for 8 to 10 points from him. But I'll take him over a random volatile tight end. So, yeah, pull Juwan Johnson, move Ridley to that spot, and put Olave in as a wide receiver. Yep, that's what I would do. And as far, again, with Travis Etienne, he's expected to go on Monday night. If D'Ernest Johnson is still out there, You can pick him up for insurance. If Tank Bigsby is still out there, which he surely is, you could pick him up for insurance. Not that I feel very confident about that, but Travis Etienne is somebody worth waiting on. We expect him to go on Monday night against the Bengals. You have to play him. You have to fire him up. If it was a worse outlook, this would be a lengthier conversation, but it sounds like Etienne is expected to play on Monday night. Your best bet is to fire him up, add either D'Ernest Johnson or Tank Bigsby. D'Ernest Johnson would be the preference if he's still available, and then that way you can just pivot to him if you have to. But we expect ETN to go on Monday night. Ridley or Watson this week. Ridley's on Monday night against the Bengals. Watson is at home on Sunday night against the Chiefs. Ridley's had 2 top 10 performances the past couple of weeks. Could the Jags be hitting their stride? It's possible. They're going to want to take care of their business at home against an inferior Bengals team. They are, of course, inferior because they no longer have Joe Burrow. What was looking like a massive AFC showdown when the schedule came out this week for Monday Night Football between the Jags and the Bengals is now a game that we kind of just expect the Jaguars to handle their business because Cincinnati doesn't have their quarterback. I would take Ridley. He's been very good the past couple of weeks. He seems to do much better when Zay Jones is in the lineup. Zay Jones is still in the lineup, right? No random setbacks happened with him, right? Not that I saw. Yeah, no issues. No issues here. For whatever reason, when Zay Jones is in the lineup, Calvin Ridley does better. Whatever. With him in, I think you want to fire up Ridley. Watson is an upside play, but it's a tougher matchup, and the Packers' offense just doesn't play as well without Aaron Jones. Now, they did okay on Thanksgiving against the Lions, but on the season, they have struggled without Aaron Jones in the lineup, and this is a tough test against the Chiefs and their top 5 defense. So I would play Ridley, especially with how he's performed the past couple of weeks. Rest of season between the Niners and the Chiefs. You just got to look at their matchups. Like after this week, the Chiefs have Buffalo at home. They have the Patriots on the road. They have the Raiders at home, and they have the Bengals at home. Outside of having to play Buffalo week 14, even though that is a home game for them, that is an elite setup for the Kansas City Chiefs in the fantasy playoffs. So you want them on your side. The 49ers after today have the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Ravens, and Washington. That is also good. That's also really good, and the 49ers are a better overall unit. That one issue for me would be that Week 16 game. It is at home, but it is against Baltimore. You cap them a little bit in that spot. I would give the slight edge to the 49ers because they are the better team. They are the most complete, probably the most complete defense, the most complete unit at this point in the NFL. The Browns might have something to say about that, but you just can't feel as good about the Cleveland Browns having to support, they're down to Joe Flacco at quarterback. I don't like defenses as much. This is why I don't like the Jets that much the rest of the season. Of course, they've got a great defense. Nobody's arguing that their defense is really good. But when the defense has to do all of the heavy lifting to support a bad offense, They're just much more likely to be in bad situations than a defense that has the support of a good offense. So the Browns are out for me. I would give the slight nod to the 49ers. That being said, the Chiefs are, I mean, they're both really good. They're both top 8 options. I guess I would say I would give the slight nod to San Francisco. Uh, my thoughts on Cade Otton today, he's not an option. He's not an option. I'd rather play Jawan Johnson. I'd rather Pat Fryermuth probably got picked up, but you know, I mean, I guess like he has a chance to come through as a tight end stream, but like I'd rather play Logan Thomas. Um, if he's available. I might prefer Brevin Jordan catching passes from CJ Stroud in Dalton Schultz's absence. Um, I might like Tyler Conklin a little bit more than Cade Otton. It's a good matchup by the numbers. Conklin's been okay. Um, I mean, I know they're playing the Panthers, but not super enthusiastic about him. Like he's had one tight end 1 week. Week 9 against Houston. He's been under 50 yards receiving in every other game. Like I get my thoughts on Cade Otton. He's the tight end 15. There's got to be a better stream. There's got to be a better stream. Hollywood or Downs? Yeah, the problem with Marquise Brown today is I know he's available, but he didn't practice all this week. It's a good matchup. It's a good matchup, but he didn't practice all this week. I would probably go Downs. I would probably go Downs over Hollywood. Rashee Rice or Puka. Puka's got the Browns, but they don't have Denzel Ward. Rice, meanwhile, has the Packers on the road. I give the slight nod to Puka. Rice popped off last week, 8 for 107 and a touchdown. A couple weeks prior to that, 4 catches for 42 yards, week 11. Week 10 was their bye. 2 catches for 17 yards against Miami. He did catch a touchdown to salvage his day, but 2 for 17 obviously is not going to cut it. Week 8, 4 for 56. Week 7, 5 for 60 and a touch. That's pretty good. And then 4 for 72 week 6. Prior to that, his usage was kind of sporadic. Rice is still seeing the field around 65% of the snaps. Puka is seeing the field at a significantly higher rate than that. The only time that Puka was under an 80% snap per share was week 1, and it was still 78%. Puka's on the field more often. The Browns are down their best corner in Denzel Ward. Puka has been more inconsistent recently than Rashee Rice. Rice has actually had a couple of better weeks than Puka recently. One of those weeks was with Brett Ripien. One of those weeks was didn't they get blown out by the Cowboys? I'm pretty sure they got absolutely blown out by the Cowboys. Um, so he became a non-factor there. And last week, only 4 for 27 on 8 targets. Not great. Week 11, he did have a good day. Puka did 5 for 70 and a touchdown. Um, it is true that he is not the bulletproof option that he was to start the season. Um, I think this is a decent spot for Puka, and I think that's where I would go. Rice is just, I mean, he has to come through on higher efficiency because he doesn't play as much. He's on the field 65% of the time. Puka's on the field 80 to 85% of the time. I just want the guy that I think is going to have more opportunities. I would go Puka. Kirk, Hunt, or Brian Robinson. I'll go Kirk. Give me the guy in the best situation. Hunt is a desperation play. Brian Robinson should be fine, but that game has a chance to get out of hand early. And if they are trailing by double digits before the end of the first half, which is kind of what I expect to happen between the Dolphins and the Commanders, Robinson could cede work to Antonio Gibson. Maybe even Chris Rodriguez mixes in. Brian Robinson is still that team's best runner, the best pure running back on the team. But how many opportunities are they going to get against this Miami Dolphins team that is, you know, they're ready to run a track meet in a way that Washington is not. I just don't know how many opportunities Brian Robinson is going to get today. He's like an RB, the volume is there, has been there for him to be like a decent RB2, but he's a little bit more like and he's for a strong portion of the season, first half of the season, he was an RB1 on the year, but things are spiraling out in Washington, and those are the situations that I just don't like as much that I want to avoid more often. So I'll go Kirk catching passes from Trevor Lawrence. Primetime game, big spot for Jacksonville against Cincinnati. Nothing scary about that matchup. Bengals are giving up a lot of points to opposing wide receivers recently, specifically slot receivers. I think Kirk can come through, even though he's the one where, Calvin Ridley does better when Zay Jones is in the lineup. Christian Kirk does a little bit worse when Zay Jones is in the lineup. I think this matchup is too good to avoid, though. And again, he is easily in the best situation of these three guys. I'll say Kirk. Instead of Otten. Yeah, I kind of like Brevin Jordan today. As like a stream. The Broncos are really bad against opposing tight ends. The last 4 weeks, the Broncos give up the second most points to opposing tight ends. 20 catches on 27 targets for 214 yards and 3 scores to opposing tight ends the past 4 weeks, past 4 games. Like last week was against Cleveland. The week before was against Minnesota. So that's Hawkinson, obviously an elite play. The week prior was Buffalo, Dalton Kincaid. And then week 8 was Kansas City against Kelsey. who they actually sort of held in check, actually. Kelsey only had 6 for 58. So it was Kincaid and Hawkinson and David Njoku putting up the big numbers against the Broncos. I think that's a decent enough of a sample size and indicator that the Broncos are struggling against tight ends in general. I would roll the dice on Brevin Jordan. I think the matchup is too good to ignore. Um, he's going to get every opportunity out there with Dalton Schultz out. And I just trust CJ Stroud at this point. Yeah, I just trust Stroud. I would roll the dice on Brevin Jordan because Dalton Schultz was in must start territory if he was able to play today. So I'll take his backup. I'll take his backup. What's going on, Callie? Good to see you, man. Um, you have Moody going in Philly, Crumply Heads. What is the weather in Philly? I know it's raining in Philly. Is it gonna last throughout the game? It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it. It's a 4:25 start. Yeah, it looks like the rain's going to move out of the area by the time kickoff rolls around. Winds only 4 to 5 degrees over the court. 4 to 5. Sorry, 4 to 5 miles per hour is the wind in Philly today. I think you're fine firing up both Moody and Jake Elliott. I think that's okay. I don't think you need to pivot off of either one of those kickers. It's not good now, but the weather, it looks like the rain's going to clear up in Philly before kickoff. And the bigger factor, the bigger weather factor as it pertains to kickers is not the rain, it's the wind. Um, 4 to 5 miles per hour, 4 to 5 mile per hour winds. That's nothing. That's a light breeze. I think you're fine to fire up Moody and Jake Elliott today if you have either one. All right, Callie needs one each of a running back, a wide receiver, and a flex. In half PPR. Both running backs. I'm rolling the dice on the Dolphins running backs today. I think the Dolphins are going to absolutely dump truck the Washington Commanders. I can't see this game being competitive at all. The only thing Washington has going for themselves in this game is that they're at home, and being at home can sometimes be an equalizer for mediocre teams playing good teams. Washington stinks. Miami is one of the better teams in the AFC. They've got elite playmakers everywhere. Washington has nothing on defense that can stop those guys. The only thing that can stop the Dolphins today is themselves, is if they just don't play well themselves. I would be firing up both running backs. And then I guess since Olave is in, cleared concussion protocol, which I was surprised about. That's just not typically something that happens. By the way, we should be getting inactives rolling in here shortly now that we have reached the 11:30 bottom of the hour. Noah Brown active, Tank Dell active, Chris Olave active, Keenan Allen active, Trey McBride is active, Marquise Brown is active. That's a surprise too, and Breece Hall is officially active. I don't see anything about Chris Godwin yet, so we want to keep an eye on him. So, yeah, anyway, Callie, Achane, Mostert, Olave is where I would go. Give me both Dolphins running backs. I think Miami's going to boat race the Commanders, and therefore I can see both running backs getting involved, getting good usage, and producing. Now, what's going on, Greg? Good to see you, man. I see a couple questions over the top. Just a quick reminder for folks. Just asking for some patience. I do get to the member questions first. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. Um, Supers are also a line jumper if you are feeling generous enough, but you don't have to. I will get to everybody else. Um, so just ask for some patience. And just a friendly reminder, if you guys are enjoying the dialogue, the engagement, the conversation, all that good stuff, I just ask that you like the stream for algorithm purposes. Appreciate that in advance. So yeah, Crumbly Heads, stick with Moody. Callie, go with your Dolphins and Chris Olave. What's going on, Fortune? Good to see you, man. And Greg with no, should you still roll? Yes, you should still roll with Nico over Garrett Wilson. Um, I would. I know Wilson caught a touchdown on Black Friday from Tim Boyle, and nothing super scary about that matchup against the Falcons, right? Um, they've actually been for the past 4 weeks specifically. They've been a little bit tougher against opposing wide receivers. No, I would still go Nico. I would still go Nico. I'm not worried about Noah Brown as it pertains to Nico's or Tank Dell's opportunities today. I am not worried about Noah Brown. Nico and Tank Dell are the guys. They are the starters. They are the horses for this Texans passing attack, and they're going to be needed today. So no, you fire up Nico with plenty of confidence, regardless of whether Noah Brown is in or not. And Fortune, between Hollywood or Amari Cooper and Brees or Ford, can you? I guess you can't just play both running backs. That's what I would most prefer to do. Cooper's in a great matchup by the numbers against the Rams. The problem is it's Joe Flacco, man, who has been there for what, a week? Meanwhile, Hollywood hasn't practiced all this week, but he's apparently good to go for this game against Pittsburgh. And that's a good matchup as well. The Steelers secondary has been giving up a decent amount of production to opposing wide receivers. Trying to think. Over the past 4 weeks, they've been a little bit more middle of the pack. Pittsburgh has. And then the Rams they've also kind of been middle of the pack, but they've still been a more favorable matchup for wide receivers, not just on the season, but over these past 4 weeks. For me, if you can only choose one of those running backs, I'm going Brees. He is just the better player. Brees Hall is just the better player. And I know that I preach a lot of times. This is just like a general rule of thumb that I like to live by for everybody's awareness. Give me players in good situations, i.e. winning teams with a good record and or fighting for a playoff spot. Give me players in that situation over players in bad situations playing out the strain on bad teams. In theory, that would mean Jerome Ford and Brees Hall, but that is just a rule of thumb. It is not in a vacuum guaranteed every single time I want to take, just because I like to live by that rule, it doesn't mean I'm going to put a lesser player in over a superior talent. Brees Hall is a superior talent compared to Jerome Ford. He is just a better football player. And he caught 7 passes last week from Tim Boyle. So Brees Hall might become the recipient of a bunch of passes from a check down god in Tim Boyle. So that just boosts his floor even more, even in a bad matchup. I'm playing Brees Hall. Ooh, it's snowing in Lambeau. This could be a fun Sunday night game between the Packers and the Chiefs. Could be a good, that could be a fun one tonight. It's snowing in Lambeau. They're showing it on Sunday Countdown on ESPN. It could be a fun football game to watch tonight. By the way, if anybody was considering it, Demario Douglas is inactive for the New England Patriots. I had not been monitoring that one throughout the week, so I don't know if that's it looks like that was to be expected. Anyway, Fortune, Brees over Ford. Um, I'm taking the superior talent there. Between Amari Cooper and Marquise Brown, you're playing either Marquise Brown, who didn't practice all this week. He's dealing with a heel injury um, on the road against Pittsburgh. What's the weather like in Pittsburgh? Or Amari Cooper, who at the very least is playing in LA. There's no concerns about the weather there. But he's catching passes from Joe Flacco, who has been there all of 1 week. I don't want to add Pittsburgh to my phone's queue. I just want to look at their weather for today. Is that too much to ask? It looks like it's about 55 degrees there now. Um, there is rain in the forecast. I am trying to look up when specifically that rain is happening. It's going to get cold there tonight. It's going to be under 40 degrees. Okay. 15% chance of rain at kickoff for Steelers Cardinals. Winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. That's not terrible, but then it looks like the chances of more rain increases as the game goes on. And there's no concerns about weather in LA as it pertains to Amari Cooper. I think I'm going to lean slightly. It's close, but I'm going to lean Hollywood Brown because at least he has his quarterback. I don't love that he hasn't practiced this week. That's not a great sign. But remember, this is a Cardinals team going nowhere, playing for nothing. They're playing for 2024. If Marquise Brown was truly banged up, I don't think he would be out there. So maybe he's fine. I would go Hollywood because at least he has his quarterback. He has Kyler. That's where I would go. That's where I would go. Okay, back up to the top, or at least where I left off. McBride or Taysom Hill? McBride. Hill was looking like a little bit more of an interesting stream, but Chris Olave is in. So, and I know Hill had a decent day last week. The YOLO tight end, as Graham Barfield refers to him. You know, he had like 20 rushing yards. He had 50 plus receiving yards. It would have been an even better day if he didn't fumble. But he was looking at increased usage without Chris Olave. That's not necessarily the case now. However, Taysom Hill is a very difficult player to sort out because on one hand, the Lions give up bottom 5 production to opposing tight ends the past 4 weeks. On the other hand, they give up top 3 production to opposing quarterbacks. This is why I hate Taysom Hill. Well, there's a lot of reasons I hate that guy. But yeah, he's just a thorn in the side of like all fantasy usage and production. That being said, he is the YOLO guy that you're looking to get a touchdown from, like a rushing touchdown, maybe more specifically. I would give the slight edge to McBride. It's not a great matchup by the numbers, but he's earned 8 targets a game the past few weeks. I feel much more confident about Trey McBride than I do Hollywood Brown as far as the availability of the Cardinals' offensive playmakers. McBride actually got in a couple of limited practices this week. Hollywood got no practice in this week. I would prefer McBride's role is as rock solid as it gets, and now Zach Ertz is gone. He's gone. He's not on IR. He's on waivers. He is off of the team. I mean, this is the McBride show. The thing with Taysom Hill is he still splits opportunities with Jawan Johnson. I would say McBride. And then as far as, well, Cup versus Chase, you have to play Chase. You have to play Chase. Cup has not looked good the past month. Cup almost looks like he's breaking down. Like, I'm not going to try to declare we're seeing the end of Cooper Cup or anything like that, but it's possible. He had 2 good weeks the first couple weeks that he returned from injury. He missed the first 4 weeks of the season, and then he played well weeks 5 and 6, and since then, it has not been good. Um, at least Chase was able to get a touchdown um, the Thursday night that Burrow went down when Browning had to step in, and then last week, I think he had a decent yardage output. 4 for 81. 4 for 81. Yeah, you got to play Chase. Neither are in great spots, but you got to play. You got to play Jamar Chase. He's got to be in your lineup, even though we're down to a backup quarterback. Callie's got a kicker question. Matt Gay's in a good spot against Tennessee. Matt Gay's in a good spot against Tennessee. That's probably where I would go. Like, do I trust Will Lutz? What's he been doing recently? Had a couple strong weeks 10 and 11. Okay. Texans are giving up top 4 production to kickers the last few weeks. I think I would go Matt Gay. At this point, I trust the I guess I trust the Broncos offense to finish drives more than I trust the Colts offense to finish drives. I would expect the Colts to stall out more than the Broncos, and so I guess I would say Gay. I would go Matt Gay. And let's see, Falcons are Bucks deep. Appreciate the kind words, Sotober. Happy to help. The Falcons, they're the top option. They're the best defensive stream this week. They're playing the Jets. They're playing Tim Boyle. Yeah, I would go the Falcons defense. Let's see. I got through my members. If you have the Dolphins, maybe just keep them. I don't want to drop the Dolphins. Maybe just keep them in. The Falcons might be the top option this week, but the Dolphins are a top 3 option this week. I would just, if you already have Miami, just keep Miami. I would just play the Dolphins. Falcons or Rams D, Falcons. Give me the Falcons are, if you don't have, like, if you've got, well, if you played the Cowboys on Thursday night, they helped you not at all. But The Dolphins, the Chiefs, um, the Chargers are a good stream this week. But if you don't have the Chiefs or the 49ers or the Browns, the defenses, the units that you are typically firing up, the Falcons are the top stream this week. The Falcons are the top stream this week. The Rams look like they're in a good spot. I do think the Rams are fine today um, against Joe Flacco. I do think they're fine. They should be able to come through, but they're not my favorite stream on the slate. All right. Start two between Dubs, Dortch, Higgins, or Hunt. Dubs and Dortch. Dubs and Dortch. I mean, it looks like there's going to snow in Green Bay tonight, but the Packers are going to have to throw the football against Kansas City. Dortch should continue to stay involved with Michael Wilson out today. Marquise Brown is in. Trey McBride is in. But I would go Dortch. Yeah, his opportunities have been pretty good without Michael Wilson. And the Cardinals are going to have to throw today. I would go Dubs and Dortch. I don't trust Higgins in his first game back, and Hunt is a desperation play. I would play those first two wide receivers. One flex, one wide receiver, Noah Brown, Marquise Brown, Trey McBride, Chuba Hubbard. I don't love Marquise Brown today because of the fact that he hasn't practiced all this week. Noah Brown is making his return. Which I don't necessarily trust. Chuba's on the road against Tampa. Not a terrible spot, but Chuba's not that good, and the Panthers just flat out stink. I think I would play your Cardinals. I think I would play Marquise Brown, and I think I would play Trey McBride and just hope for the best. When healthy, Marquise Brown is the best player in this group. He's not 100% healthy, but he is going to play. And 1 week before the bye week, if he was truly hurt, if he was truly banged up, they would rest him. They would sit him, especially a team that's not going anywhere in the Arizona Cardinals. But he's the best player of this group. And Trey McBride has his opportunities have skyrocketed with Zach Ertz officially out of the picture the past 3 weeks. He's averaging over 8 targets a game. I'll take Hollywood and I'll take Trey McBride over Chuba and Noah Brown. Let's see. McBride or Engram. Engram has done like nothing this year. The Bengals are bad against opposing tight ends. They're not very good on defense recently in general. They're getting hit by opposing tight ends, so it's a good spot for Ingram. I would say play McBride. I would say play McBride. He's just been better. He's been better than Evan Ingram this year. I would play McBride. He's just been better. Herbert or Stroud? Yeah. Stroud. Stroud. He's at home. They lost last week. Houston did. So, they're going to be they're coming into this game fired up, ready to go to defend home turf. There's a huge game for both teams. They've got wild card aspirations, or at least, Houston could still get the division theoretically. They'd have to go on a crazy good tear to make that happen, but they're still mathematically alive for it, even though they lost to Jacksonville last week. I mean, Houston's going to play aggressive at home. Herbert should be fine, but he's on the road against New England. I don't like that spot as much. Like, Herbert will be fine, but you'd say yourself, you need to get a win. You need to stay alive in the playoff race. I don't want to play a guy who I feel fine about. I want to play a guy who I feel better about. I feel better about Stroud right now than I do Justin Herbert. I would go Stroud. And not Kyler over either of those guys. Stroud is on a heater right now. He had another he had 4 scores last week. I know he had 2 throwing and 1 rushing. I can't remember if he got like a 4th, but another at least another 3 touchdown output last week at home. Yeah, I think you got to go Stroud. You got to go Stroud. Freiermuth or Njoku? Freiermuth. This is a great spot for him. He had career highs last week, single week career highs last week. Freiermuth did, so we're not expecting him to put up career high numbers again. But the Cardinals are they're getting hit pretty good by opposing tight ends. They're a top 10 matchup the last 4 weeks to opposing tight ends. And Njoku's catching passes from Joe Flacco. Freiermuth. Give me Freiermuth. At home against Arizona, yeah. You want to start your Steelers today. Yeah, Freiermuth over Njoku. 3 in full PPR. Downs, Hollywood. Ayuk is in. Ayuk is Brandon Ayuk is not part of start sit questions. He is just in. Reed. I would go Downs against Tennessee. And then it's between Hollywood and Jaden Reed. Both are like banged up. Reed's got a chest injury. Hollywood's not practiced all this week with, I think it's a heel injury. I would go Marquise Brown and just hope for the best, even though he hasn't practiced all this week. Jaden Reed is dealing with a chest injury himself. I would go Hollywood. And I mean, he's his team's number 1 wide receiver. Reed is maybe he could be the team's wide receiver 1 any given week. He's more likely to be the team's wide receiver 2 or 3 any given week. I'll take Hollywood. So Downs, Hollywood, Ayuk. Not Jaden Reed over any of those guys. One running back and one flex. Ford, Connor, Singletary, and Reed again. Probably Singletary and Ford. Singletary's in a pretty good spot at home against the Broncos, and he continues to operate as that team's 1A. Ford, it's not a great spot, but I just don't. If there's, I don't like this spot for James Conner. James Conner has been kind of quiet the past couple of weeks since he returned from injury. He hasn't scored a touchdown. He hasn't been really catching the ball. This is not a good matchup for opposing running backs. I'll say Singletary and Ford. Singletary and Ford. So Downs, Ayuk, Hollywood, and then Singletary and Ford. Let's see. Got a couple more questions left to go. I'm just double checking to make sure I didn't miss anything at the top. Got an hour left to kick off, so I can hang around for a few more minutes if need be. But let's get these wins today. Crucial playoff week. And I gotta charge my phone. Just as my charger fell out of the wall. Start one between Hollywood, Swift, Najee, and Rice. Najee. I mean, he's been playing better. The Steelers are officially, they are out from under having to deal with Matt Canada being a terrible offensive coordinator. Harris has been looking a little bit better recently, and he's got a great matchup against Arizona. You want to start running backs against the Arizona Cardinals no matter what. Najee. Yeah, you want to play your running backs against the Arizona Cardinals. And then do you trade James Cook and Myers for Brees? I mean, you still have a trade deadline that hasn't passed yet. That's impressive. I mean, Brees is the most talented player of this group. There's no doubt. He's also in like a bad situation from here on out. Yeah, I don't know if I would. I like Brees Hall. He is the most talented player of these three guys, but the Jets stink, and James Cook is on a good team in the Bills. I'm only okay with it if you have absolutely no need for Jacoby Myers. If you've got good wide receivers and decent wide receiver depth, and therefore he's kind of just like a fill-in, and it's essentially you're giving up Cook for Brees, then I'm okay with it. Just know that you are downgrading in situation from James Cook to Brees Hall. You're upgrading it as a player going from James Cook to Brees. But he's in a bad situation with the Jets. Give me a sec. I got to charge my phone. All right. Falcons or Rams rest of season. I mean, neither. We're on with defenses like that. You're on a week to week basis with those crumbly heads. We're not stashing either one of those defenses. I don't care what their matchups look like. Those are not season long holds. Those are not season-long holds. Yeah, just to wrap up the thoughts on the trade question. If you've got good wide receivers and you're going from James Cook to Brees, then fine. That's okay. Just know that Brees is in a significantly worse situation, which is a little dicey. Start 3, sit 1. Brian Robinson, James Conner, Taysom Hill, Amari Cooper. I guess I would start those running backs, even though I don't like the spot that either one of those two are in today. But when choosing between different players, running back volume is going to be king here. I guess I would go those two running backs, and I would go Taysom Hill. I don't have any confidence in Amari Cooper right now because he has to catch passes from Joe Flacco, who has been there for like a week. Cooper's numbers have cratered out without Deshaun Watson. Like, is 2023 Joe Flacco? I guess he's better than PJ Walker. I guess he's better than Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but like, holy hell, man. I mean, 2023 Joe Flacco, who was on his couch just a couple of weeks ago. He's 38 years old. Yeah, good luck with that. I would avoid. I think I would avoid Amari Cooper until he proves that he can do something without Deshaun Watson. It's been bad the past couple of weeks. 2 for 16, 4 for 34. Maybe Flacco helps him a little bit. At least he's a veteran. But, like, again, he wasn't even on a roster a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Robinson, Connor, and Taysom Hill over Cooper. Chuba or Puka this week? Puka. Play the better player. Chuba stinks. Tampa's not very good either, but Chuba stinks. The Panthers are atrocious. And Puka gets some help this week because Denzel Ward is out for Cleveland. I just don't trust Chuba. I know he has had a couple of weeks. He's had his weeks here and there. He's come through, but he's just not a good player on a bad offense on the road. I just don't. I have a hard time. I have a hard time vouching for Chuba. I would go the wide receiver in full PPR. Puka hasn't exactly blown the doors off the past month, but Denzel Ward is out, so they get a break. And any given week, Puka could just outproduce Cooper Kupp, who the past month to 5 or 6 weeks has not looked like the Cooper Kupp of old. I'll take Puka at home, no weather concerns against a Browns defense that does not have Denzel Ward. They have Myles Garrett, so they still have, a very strong pass rush that'll cause problems, but give me Puka without Denzel Ward for the Browns. Pick 2 between Watson, Pickens, or Downs. I would take Watson's upside. And until Pickens does anything, I would take Downs. I would take Watson and Downs. Pickens is in a great matchup against Arizona, but he's not doing anything recently. He's got, did y'all know George Pickens has one of the worst separation rates for wide receivers in the NFL? He can come through here and there. He's talented, but he doesn't perform consistently. Last few weeks, 3 for 58, 4 for 38, 3 for 45, 2 catches for -1 yard. And then he had one 22-yard catch for a score back in week 8. This dude has done nothing for the past 6 weeks. I know it's a great matchup at home against Arizona, but I have zero confidence in George Pickens right now. Zero. He doesn't separate. Like everybody thought, oh, George Pickens is going to overtake Deontay Johnson as the Steelers wide receiver one. He would have to be more talented first. Deontay Johnson is still better than George Pickens by a wide margin, which isn't saying much. Watson and Downs. Anthony, appreciate the subscription. Thank you. And then Trey McBride or Freiermuth in full PPR. I'm probably going McBride. McBride is a top 5 option at tight end this week and possibly just moving forward in general. Averaging 8 targets a game the past month, and now Zach Ertz is gone. Yes, it's a good matchup for Freiermuth on the other side, but McBride is just he's been more consistent. Freiermuth has been injured. He's been banged up, so he doesn't have the sample size necessarily, and he had a great game last week. But McBride has been better more consistently more recently. I got to play McBride. Yeah, McBride over Freiermuth. All right, we are at the end of the chat with about 48 minutes to go before the slate. I'll give it another minute or so for any other last second questions, but I will be shutting this down shortly. I have my own lineup decisions that I have to sort out myself. But appreciate y'all coming in today, hanging out, talking shop. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully we get some important wins today as we try to stay in the playoff race. If you need any additional help moving forward while I am not live for live streams, you can join my Discord. Second link in the description of this stream and all of the streams and videos on my channel. You can keep an eye out over there for potential help. And if you appreciate the channel itself and feel so inclined to support, there are information about memberships in the first link in the description of this live stream and every stream/video on this channel. Of those running back options, a bunch of really good options. I guess I would sit ETN because he's on the injury report and he doesn't play until Monday night. I would just play the guys who are playing today. I would play Kamara, I would play Kyron Williams, and I would play Zach Moss. Just sit ETN and don't worry about the potential issue with the injury, with the potential injury report. Yep. I would just sit ETN there. All right. This chat is empty, so I think everybody has taken care of what they needed taken care of. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Everybody, best of luck, week 13, and I will see you guys for waiver wire suggestions on Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. That'll do it for me. Thanks, everybody. Let's get these wins.